The National Desk, America's News, now.
National nightmare.
I got into mode, and I needed to save my family.
Two separate mass shooting investigations happening right now in Virginia and Colorado. What we're just learning about the two suspects and the warning signs that may have been missed in each case. Repayment pause.
I'm never going to apologize for helping working class and middle class families recover from the economic crisis created by the pandemic.
What the new moratorium means for millions of student borrowers. Plus, scare in the skies.
It's something that you can't manage in the same way that you manage crewed aircraft.
The security threat that may be looming inside our nation's most secure airspace. Pandemic first. The majority of Americans now dying from COVID were at least partially vaccinated. The troubling trend.
This is the National Desk, America's News Now. I'm Dee Dee Gatton. It's great to be here with you. On this weekend edition, we take a look at the big headlines of the week and a look ahead at what to expect, starting with the four big stories we've been following this week. New details emerging for our nation's latest mass shooting in Chesapeake, Virginia. The chilling stories from survivors. And a potential rail strike still looming that could cripple our national supply chain. How the president is contradicting the White House in response. Plus, a national nurse shortage may get worse. Amid an influx of hospitalizations, the pressure is on to hire and retain them, the main factor driving them to call it quits. Donald Trump's tax returns can now be turned over to the Democrat-led House Ways and Means Committee. What's next for 45? Starting in Chesapeake, Virginia, where families are spending the holidays without their loved ones after a store manager shot and killed 6 Walmart employees Tuesday night before turning it on himself. One survivor now recalling her experience.
The only thing that made it real was the vibrations hitting your chest and the ringing from the gun going off.
Police say the manager bought the gun just hours before the shooting. The victims' ages ranging from 70 to as young as 16 years old. The city of Chesapeake, Virginia, planning to hold a vigil on Monday. And to Colorado Springs now, police are working to find a motive for the mass shooting inside a nightclub Saturday. Police say 22-year-old Anderson Lee Aldridge shot and killed these 5 people and injured a dozen more storming the LGBTQ nightclub. Aldridge identifying as non-binary, but some lawmakers argue it should still be investigated as a hate crime.
It doesn't change the fact that these people were murdered in cold blood, and that hate, the hateful rhetoric, the hate that is obviously in this person's heart, murdered these people. And so it doesn't change the fact that this is a hate crime.
Aldridge now facing 5 counts of first-degree murder and is due back in court December 6th. Looking live right now over the White House, where President Biden contradicted White House officials, claiming he was not in contact with either party in the potential nationwide railroad strike.
My team has been in touch with all the parties, in rooms with the parties, and I have not directly engaged yet because they're still talking.
White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre telling reporters Tuesday the president was directly involved in negotiations. The 4 rail unions who voted against an agreement with U.S. freight railroads set a joint strike date of December 9th if no contract deal is reached. They're demanding better hours and better pay. If a strike happens, it could cost the economy at least $1 billion in its first week. From commuting to purchasing a new vehicle, feeding your family, and even holiday shopping, Americans would feel the everyday impacts of a strike. The National Desk's Atra El-Nashar takes a look at what could happen if the two sides can't reach a deal.
Transport of about 30% of America's freight could come to a sudden stop for the first time in 30 years. a recipe for disaster for an economy still recovering from supply chain disruptions.
It's urgent that we get something done. A strike would be catastrophic for the U.S. economy.
The National Retail Federation among the groups calling on Congress to intervene in order to prevent what would be a massive blow to the economy during the holidays. According to the American Association of Railroads, a nationwide rail shutdown would cost the economy about $2 billion per day. Few industries would be spared. Grocery stores could see shortages of packaged food, much like during the pandemic. New cars could take even longer to produce. But what could affect the most people is if shipments of chemicals are shut down.
Hundreds of thousands of manufacturers in this country rely upon us for raw materials to make finished goods.
The American Chemistry Council also calling on Congress to intervene. They argue a rail shutdown could push the U.S. economy into recession.
A month-long strike would cause the loss of 700,000 jobs and drain $160 billion out of our economy.
Congress would need to step in quickly. A strike could occur as soon as December 5th, and all 12 unions involved have agreed to respect each other's picket lines. But here on Capitol Hill, we're not seeing a clear plan emerge.
I don't know what the role of Congress should be here.
Congressman Jamie Raskin tells us it's notable the workers' demands are about quality of life, time off, not pay. No one wants a strike. One union president tells us avoiding one won't solve all the industry's problems.
They're still going to have trouble hiring if we don't collectively turn these into more attractive jobs, and in the end, I think, impact the supply chain negatively if we don't accomplish that.
Immediate and long-term issues bound to impact just about everyone. In Washington, I'm Atrel Nashar for the National Desk, America's News Now.
Audra, thank you. New details in a plan to extend the freeze on federal student loans. The president pausing repayment until after his student loan forgiveness program's legal challenges are resolved in the courts. In a video message, President Biden explaining he's authorizing the extension through as late as next August.
But it isn't fair to ask tens of millions of borrowers eligible for relief to resume their student debt payments while the courts consider the lawsuit. For that reason, the Secretary of Education is extending the pause on student loan payments while we seek relief from the courts.
Eligible borrowers could have up to $20,000 in student loans forgiven through the program. Donald Trump's tax returns can now be turned over to the Democrat-led House Ways and Means Committee. This after the Supreme Court rejected the former president's request to block the IRS from releasing them. The committee first requested the returns from the IRS in 2019 when Trump was in office, but the agency refused to turn them over. The Biden administration argued federal law allows the committee to examine any taxpayer's returns, including a president's. America's nursing shortage may only get worse. Now, some groups are proposing dramatic steps to hire and retain nurses. The National Desk's Angelo reports on the shocking numbers of nurses thinking about quitting.
A recent poll by Connect RN found that 50% of nurses have considered leaving the profession. We are digging into what organizations and states are doing to stop the bleeding. A nursing Hail Mary in Oregon coming in the form of new legislation.
Our members are burned out.
Could a new bill fix that? The Oregon Nurses Association thinks so, or at least make a dent. They're proposing a bill to require Oregon hospitals to have a minimum number of nurses for the number of patients and make it enforceable with fines. Our team in Portland interviewing Paige Spence from ONA.
By establishing these standards into law, we're closing the loopholes that some hospitals are currently exploiting to have fewer nurses at the bedside.
From state legislation to cash bonuses, the pressure on overdrive to keep and hire nurses. In Texas, sign-on bonuses nearly doubling. California, the average salary 20% higher than the national average, not to mention a global bidding war for nurses. Paul Siegert, PCS Advisors, is tracking it all.
People leave, retire early, vaccine mandates, people leave the business. So it accelerated the whole process.
Overall, the healthcare industry is having its own emergency. Healthcare Brew reporting this month more than 4 million workers left the healthcare industry in the first 8 months of this year, 20% of the entire workforce. Shortages that may trigger more quits.
But if you show up and you're supposed to be in a facility that has 10 positions filled and there are only 6 there, you're doing the work of those other 4 positions.
This year, nurses hitting back, protesting in major cities like LA, saying they're stretched thin.
Sometimes we have to work 12 and a half hours straight with no breaks.
That same Connect RN 1 poll found that the #1 reason nurses want to quit, staffing shortages. In Washington, D.C., I'm Angela Brown.
Angela, thank you. Recently, Taylor Swift's Ticketmaster debacle drawing attention to the way the website runs its platform. The Justice Department even launching an antitrust investigation in response to the botched sale of tickets to the singer's upcoming tour. Our fact-check team weighing in.
Members of Congress calling for investigations into Ticketmaster after the Taylor Swift ticket sales flop, renewed accusations of the company being a monopoly. I'm back with the fact-check team now. Janae, multiple investigations could be in the works here.
Right, Eugene. So according to the New York Times, the Department of Justice was already investigating prior to this ticket debacle. Now, Ticketmaster and the concert promotion company Live Nation merged back in 2010, leading to the creation of Live Nation Entertainment. Now, the government is looking into whether or not Live Nation Entertainment maintains a monopoly over the multi-billion-dollar live music industry. And we should note, at the time of the merger, they agreed to upkeep certain requirements, like not retaliating against other companies. Now, the Department of Justice found the company violated those terms of the agreement. Just 2 years ago, Ticketmaster had to pay a $10 million criminal fine for going into a competitor's computer system.
Wow, some serious existing legal troubles there. But Connor, it looks like there might be more here on the way.
Yeah, at least a couple more. House Democrats are calling for the Department of Justice to reverse the Live Nation Ticketmaster merger, and Senator Amy Klobuchar wrote a letter directly to Ticketmaster listing up her concerns about the merger as well.
But could the DOJ actually break up Ticketmaster, break up this company?
So the Department of Justice does have some jurisdiction here, and they could seek a breakup. The DOJ did have to approve the 2010 merger, and according to the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, companies are required to notify the federal government about any potential merger if it exceeds $92 million. And we found that over the past 20 years, the government has challenged some 780 mergers and won nearly all of them. In fact, 769 of those challenges.
Okay, and there's always that threat that the artists could say, you know what, we don't need them. They abandoned the company. So we'll see how all of this plays out. I know Taylor Swift already kind of hinted at that on Twitter, so we'll watch out for that as well. Hey, scan that QR code on the bottom of your screen right there, or head on over to thenationaldesk.com. You want to go there to see what the fact-check team has been looking into to get all their information for this research.
Guys, thank you. Just ahead, overcoming the unthinkable at age 9.
He'll have some more surgery on his mouth. He's got a bullet still lodged in his abdomen.
The tiny road rage survivor and the search for the driver. Plus, the new partnership in the Lone Star State, making sure no kid goes hungry this holiday season. The National Desk team of reporters is bringing you the headlines from coast to coast. We're taking the pulse of America, starting in Seattle, Washington, where a 9-year-old road rage shooting victim is now out of the hospital.
And just determination to be out of the hospital just catapulted him. He's doing great considering what he's been through.
It was a special day of celebration for Isaiah Johns, who has fought through the unimaginable in the past week. A road rage shooting in Renton sent him to the ICU, where surgeons would pull a bullet from his chest and neck.
He'll have some more surgery on his mouth. He's got a bullet still lodged in his abdomen. That was part of the bullet that hit him in his chest.
Today, the 9-year-old was greeted by friends and family for a special homecoming just days after being released from Harborview. Investigators have recently recovered the dark blue Mustang they believe was driven by the shooter, who is still missing.
We're hoping now that someone in the community may recognize them or have heard what's happened and come forward.
But today's focus remains on Isaiah's recovery and keeping that smile on his face with plenty to look forward to.
We're rooting for him. In Portland, Oregon, an uptick in COVID cases is impacting businesses across the city. The owner of a restaurant group there says about 50 of his employees are currently out sick, forcing him to close at least one of his locations each night. Another store owner says she had to close her store 3 days out of the week due to the staff calling out sick. Now she's bringing back mask wearing.
Protecting my employees is my number one priority above anything else. If I don't have, if my employees don't feel safe and protected, who's going to want to come to work? I mean, that's just silly.
COVID cases in Multnomah County, where Portland is located, are currently up 15% from 2 weeks ago, according to the New York Times. In Texas, a new partnership between the American Academy of Pediatrics and No Kid Hungry Texas is working to help Texas families struggling with food insecurity. The partnership connects families in need with federal programs to help ease the burden of rising food costs.
This is really helping to improve food insecurity screenings by asking families a little bit about what they're experiencing. Are they worried about running out of food, or have they experienced that where they have run out of food at home?
$20,000 in grant funding has been approved for the initiative. Inflation impacting the holiday season. A former White House economic advisor telling us if prices have peaked and what he's predicting for the economic recovery. Inflation is eating up economic growth. We're looking at new data to see if the peak of these price hikes is finally here. For a closer look at the latest economic reports, former White House economic advisor Steve Moore talked to our Jan Jeffcoat.
A new data released last week showed U.S. supplier and consumer price increases cooling a little, right? So how strong of a signal is this that we may have seen the peak? How confident are you that inflation could start to cool now?
Well, Jan, I'll give you some good news and some bad news this morning. So I think the good news is that we are seeing some relief on the inflation front. We got the inflation rate up to about 8.5% a couple of months ago. I think it's headed to maybe 5 or 6%. which is still a high rate, but it's a lot better than 8.5%. So that's good news that we're seeing some progress there. Now, the bad news is that, you're showing tractors and trucks. And though the big thing that's rising in price right now is diesel costs, diesel fuel. Now, most people don't use diesel fuel, so they're probably wondering, why does that matter? Because every truck, every tractor, so much of what we transport is used with diesel fuel, and those prices have doubled over the last couple of years. And when those transportation costs rise of getting food to the grocery store counters and getting them into the stores, then you're going to see, persistent inflation at the cash register. So I have one other big concern I wanted to raise with you, Jan, and that is because we've had this high inflation over the past year of about 8%. And remember, we've talked about inflation at 8% and wages at 5%. And what's happening now is that we're seeing an increase in consumer credit card debt. People are going more into debt, Jan, to have to pay their bills because the prices are higher. I worry a little bit about that because, you can't just we're not the federal government. We just can't keep, running up our debt month after month. At some point, you have to pay those bills.
I've seen a lot of those buy now, pay later schemes also on so many shopping sites online as well. I want to talk about the supply chain problems that we're still having because it almost seems like it's becoming normalized. Industries are shifting right now to this new normal, not having, not being fully employees or not fully stacked. We know there's a lot of openings still. October saw the number of loaded inbound shipping containers down 26% from 1 year ago and the lowest volume of imported goods since May of 2020. What does this indicate about the direction our economy is headed?
Well, I think we are making some slight progress with the problem of supply chain, of just getting the goods and services to the market. But we still have big problems. And don't forget, there's still talk out there, Jan, of a potential rail strike. Now, you're showing the cargo ships, but a lot of that stuff is loaded off of those boats and it's put on the rail, if not trucks. And so, if we have a rail strike, that's going to cause real supply chain problems. We are not out of the woods on that yet. It's the hangover from the COVID effect. It's happening all over the world. And you look at those ships with those massive amounts of cargo that are on those ships. I don't understand why it's taking so long to get this problem resolved because it still exists.
Right. And when it comes to the markets, I've been reading many reports that we should really expect the stock market to continue dropping. The S&P's fallen with 17%, NASDAQ down 29%. We're in a bear market, as we know. And I've read what will seem obvious in a few years may be difficult to accept right now. But let's keep in mind, Powell has said he wants inflation, at 2%? As you mentioned, we're at 7.7%, a long way to go until we get to that point. So what does this mean for investors and for everyone at home right now looking at their retirements?
Well, the market dropped precipitously the first half of this year, Jan, but it's been on a little bit of a rally since since July, August. The fall has been pretty good. And I'll give you one kind of ray of sunlight that people should look at in terms of the stock market. If you look over the last 50 years or so, when does the stock market do best? When you look at the political situation, it's when you have divided power, Jan, between the Democrats and the Republicans. Well, guess what? Yeah, it was a lousy election for the Republicans. They didn't get the wins that they wanted, but they do now control the House of Representatives. So for the first time in 2 years, you actually do have divided government. I think that will be good for the stock market. I think it will be good for the economy. You know why? Because it creates checks and balances, and that's always a positive thing for the U.S. economy. So a lot of economists are predicting a recession in 2023 because of the rising interest rates by the Fed. I'm not so sure about that. I hope we can skate around one, but we'll have to see.
Crisis on the southern border. The top Democrats who now say their own party isn't doing enough to help. taking a look at the top trending stories on our website right now. Police still looking for suspects in the stabbing death of 4 University of Idaho students. Police now investigating whether or not one of the victims may have had a stalker. And 7 Michigan State football players now facing charges after a fight in a stadium tunnel with a University of Michigan player following Michigan State's loss. The cross-state schools have long carried a historic rivalry. And a recent poll by Connect RN now saying 50% of nurses have considered leaving their profession. The same poll finding the #1 reason nurses want to quit nationwide is due to staffing shortages. Those stories and much more available right now at thenationaldesk.com. To the crisis at the southern border, Arizona's Democratic senator going against his own party, saying it's not doing enough to address Americans' frustrations. The Washington Post asked Senator Mark Kelly if Democrats recognize the issues. He responded, absolutely not even close. When I first got to Washington, it didn't take me long to realize that there are a lot of Democrats who don't understand our southern border and a lot of Republicans who just want to talk about it. And I continue to talk to my Republican colleagues about how we have to do more in border security. Illegal border crossings are at historic levels since President Biden took office. Last month, Customs and Border Protection reporting more than 230,000 border encounters, and border agents estimate another 64,000 gotaways. Numbers like that are one of the reasons House Republican leader Kevin McCarthy and other Republicans are now calling for DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas to resign, giving him until January 3rd when Republicans take control of the House.
Secretary Mayorkas, resign. If not, we're coming and we will hold you accountable.
Our country may never recover from Secretary Mayorkas' dereliction of duty. This is why today I am calling on the Secretary to resign.
McCarthy warns if Mayorkas does not step down, the incoming Republican-led House may move to impeach him. McCarthy also said he wants to hold House hearings at the border so Democrats can see the migrant situation firsthand. Coming up next here, protecting precious airspace. The new report prompting lawmakers to sound the alarm on Chinese-made drones. And proof one pill can kill. The prescription drug fake-out prompting the DEA to take action. You're watching The National Desk, America's News Now. You can catch us live weekdays from 6 a.m. to 11 a.m. and 10 p.m. to midnight Eastern Time, and anytime online at thenationaldesk.com. We'll be right back.
The National Desk, America's News Now.
We come on the air. Police continue to investigate our nation's latest mass shooting in Virginia. 6 Walmart workers killed in Chesapeake, 2 still fighting for their lives. And some state representatives in Colorado pushing for an alleged nightclub shooter to be charged with a hate crime. The 22-year-old accused of killing 5 people inside an LGBTQ nightclub and self-identifying as non-binary. Plus, student borrowers won't have to resume payments until January 1st. President Biden extending a moratorium while challenges to his broader relief plan move through the courts. This is the National Desk, America's News Now. Thanks for being with us. I'm Dee Gatton. Lawmakers in the House are getting ready for a big hearing this week. They're going to be examining how one of the largest cryptocurrency exchanges was able to collapse, taking with it billions of dollars from Americans. The National Desk, Christine Frizzell, explains why some lawmakers are now facing scrutiny.
There are no longer questions about whether FTX will be investigated. The Senate has already scheduled a December 1st hearing, with another promised in the House as well. But following a Chapter 11 bankruptcy filing detailing a company with a complete failure of corporate controls, faulty regulatory oversight, and inexperienced, unsophisticated, and potentially compromised individuals, questions are now focused on how the company's founder, Sam Bankman-Fried, was able to operate for so long and lose so much of Americans' money. With concerns his political donations may have played a role in the lack of oversight, considering he was the second biggest Democratic-leaning mega donor this election cycle, even asked about it before his company's collapse.
Why shouldn't folks be a little bit skeptical of your real motives?
Do the research, look at the policies that I'm supporting, the candidates that I'm supporting.
Those candidates include 7 Democrats and 2 Republicans on the House Financial Services Committee, which he appeared before last year.
It's an honor to be here.
Chairwoman Maxine Waters previously appeared in photos with him, even appeared to blow him a kiss at the conclusion of that December hearing. Now asked about his ties to Washington.
Those contributions may have been done in an attempt to influence, but of course, we have to deal with that as regulators and as members of Congress with the responsibility for oversight.
There are questions now about what that oversight will entail and if another company in the future could get away with a similar type of fraud if only they pay the political price. I'm Christine Frizzell, reporting for the National Desk, America's News Now.
Christine, thank you. Another tech company is gearing up for layoffs. HP announcing it will let go of thousands of workers over the next 3 years. The computer maker says quarterly earnings dropped 11% compared to a year ago. It plans to reduce its global workforce of about 51,000 employees by 4,000 to 6,000 workers by 2025. Amazon's Alexa is reportedly costing the company billions. This year alone, expenses are expected to reach $10 billion. Many of Amazon's upcoming layoffs are expected to target the company's worldwide digital unit, which covers products like Alexa, Prime Video, and Echo smart speakers. Next week, Twitter will bring back all banned accounts. Twitter owner Elon Musk made the announcement on Thursday. Exactly who that involves and when hasn't been made official. The move comes after Musk posted a poll asking if Twitter should reinstate suspended accounts that haven't broken the law. About 75% of responders agreed. Is China using recreational drones to spy on the U.S. government? And if so, what is Washington doing about it? That's the question being raised after a Politico report detailing emerging concerns over dozens of recent violations by users. Sinclair's chief political correspondent Scott Thuman spoke to one top cabinet member and other experts about those concerns.
The typical quiet over Washington, D.C. skies, more often, some worry, are being broken by a growing threat. Drones and the danger they pose due to their maker, China, and the potential for spying. A new Politico piece documenting the alarm by lawmakers that the most secure airspace in the world is seeing the appearance of so many Chinese-made drones presents a new challenge, noting more than 100 incursions in a recent 45-day period. The recreational drones, often altered by owners to get around government rules and enter sensitive zones, may be used simply for fun, but there is a belief China can access the user's data to spy.
They could number in the millions by the end of this decade, and it's something that you can't manage in the same way that you manage crewed aircraft. But I think there is more to come so that we can stay on top of this issue.
In a recent Full Measure report, James Lewis, who once worked cybersecurity for the government and United Nations, said America needed to challenge China more in the past, so it had better now. You look back 10, 15, 20 years and you say, we had it wrong.
We did. You can think in 2010, Google got hacked, and that should have been the wake-up call. That here's one of the biggest IT companies in the world, and they couldn't protect themselves from the Chinese.
Concerning to lawmakers again, sounding the alarm on Chinese-owned apps like TikTok.
I think Donald Trump was right. It is a massive collector of information. If you're a parent and you got a kid on TikTok, I would be very, very concerned. All of that data that your child is inputting and receiving is being stored somewhere.
And now Chinese companies buying property and farmland in the U.S. near military installations is prompting some lawmakers to call for investigations and new laws even that would allow President Biden to halt that process. In Washington, Scott Thuman for the National Desk.
Scott, thank you. Employees at Apple's biggest iPhone factory beaten and detained. That's according to an Associated Press report about videos like this posted on social media. Social posts claim the factory locked employees inside for weeks over COVID concerns, and that workers fought back against guards, with some climbing fences to escape. Mask mandates could be making a return in some places. The Department of Health and Human Services publishing a report recommending a return to social distancing and wearing masks. This report argues everyone masking helps people who have ongoing COVID symptoms, but critics call it an unnecessary overreach. With abortion, one of the key topics driving politics at the moment, our fact-check team taking a closer look at new guidance for migrant women currently living in U.S. shelters. Here's what the Biden administration is now proposing.
There's new guidance out from the Biden administration to ensure pregnant migrant girls in federal custody have access to abortions. Now, we're looking back at how the procedure has been handled before with migrants. I'm with Connor and Courtney from our fact-check team. Courtney, is this the first time abortion rises to the top of the migrant crisis conversation?
It's not. The Biden administration has just been reinforcing efforts to provide access ever since Roe was overturned. And ICE was actually the first law enforcement agency to do this. In July, the agency released a memo saying any pregnant woman in federal custody will still have access to abortion. This was a reminder that under ICE's health regulations, the agency provides abortions to migrants in cases of rape or incest or a threat to the mother's life. And it may be necessary to transfer a pregnant woman in custody elsewhere to ensure that she has access to the proper care.
Okay, now all of that under the Biden administration. What can you tell us about abortion access for migrants under previous administrations?
So we know that President Biden and President Trump have very different policies when it comes to the border. The Trump administration tried to block migrant access to abortion, but a federal court ruled against them in 2019, allowing a 17-year-old to get the procedure.
Okay, now what can we point to as far as, what's governing these decisions? Connor, any conflict, especially because tax dollars are being used for this, right?
Right, that's a big issue, Eugene, and there's a federal policy that guides that. It's known as the Hyde Amendment, and it states that it's illegal for federal funds to be used for an abortion procedure itself, so that excludes travel, but that can also be used in the case of incest, rape, or the threat of a mother's life.
Any consequences, though, if the government does fund an abortion that doesn't fall into those exceptions?
So we looked through the law, we made some calls, and we couldn't find that there was a specific enforcement mechanism for that.
Okay. Now, there are other agencies that have worked to provide abortion access as well, though.
Right, there are. And in September, the VA released a new rule that states the department will provide abortion counseling, and if the procedure itself falls into one of those exceptions I just mentioned. And last month, the Secretary of Defense announced the Pentagon will pay for service members to travel for abortion.
Okay, lots to look into. Nice work, ladies. We appreciate it as always. And the fact-check team will continue to follow developments on these and other issues. You can read this story with links to where they found their information on our website, thenationaldesk.com.
A new warning now about fake prescription pills. The Drug Enforcement Agency issuing this alert warning about a sharp nationwide increase in the lethality of fentanyl-laced fake prescription pills. The DEA says 6 out of 10 fake pills analyzed contained a lethal dose. They say only trust pills prescribed by a doctor. Dr. Anthony Fauci gave an official farewell from the White House podium ahead of his retirement. He shared how he wants Americans to remember him.
Every day for all of those years, I've given it everything that I have, and I've never left anything on the field. So if they want to remember me, whether they judge rightly or wrongly what I've done, I gave it all I got for many decades.
The nation's top infectious disease expert is retiring from the government next month. After more than 50 years, for the last 38, he served as director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases. Dr. Fauci will likely be called to testify before Congress about the COVID response as Republicans take over the House. He says he will cooperate and has nothing to hide. Record low test scores show our nation's students are falling behind. The National Desk, Janae Bowens, looks at how some parents are turning to tutors to help get their children back on track.
According to tutors.com, on average, a private tutor costs anywhere between $25 and $80 per hour. Even at a time of high inflation, parents and educators I spoke with tell me it's worth every penny.
She helped me with the stuff that I don't really understand in school.
The Famadou family is shifting priorities, putting tutoring at the top of the list.
When fall came around, it wasn't even about if we could afford it or not. It was more like, how can we make this work?
With remote learning and a lack of one-on-one instruction during the COVID-19 pandemic, Lola Famadou says her 10-year-old fifth grader Shani needs the extra help.
We're just honestly, I'm a little bit worried about middle school. So we're just trying to prepare him.
It's not just their family. Data from Grandview Research shows the global online tutoring services market size was estimated at around $6.6 billion in 2021. It's projected to grow to more than $23 billion by 2030.
Before the pandemic, tutoring was more of a luxury, but now it's becoming a necessity.
Michael Sisson founded his small family-owned business, Magellan Tutoring, 10 years ago. And just within the last few years, parents are now calling him nonstop for help. Sisson says the business has grown from 60 families in 2020 to over 250 this year. It makes sense when you look at the nation's report card that shows declines in reading and the largest ever recorded declines in math.
Have that student who is missing the fundamentals at least get better at that and gain confidence, then I think that our service is a benefit to the community.
At least to bring him back up to speed.
And Famadou believes this pinch on her budget for tutoring will greatly help her son.
So now I could do like any problem.
The nation's report card also showed not a single state saw a notable improvement in average test scores. And as you heard, tutoring has now become a necessity and not a luxury for some parents and their children. Reporting for the National Desk, I'm Janae Bowens.
Janae, thank you. As we head into the holidays, a major adoption group is working to make sure all children have a family of their own. The Dave Thomas Foundation aims to find permanent homes for the more than 140,000 children waiting to be adopted from foster care in the U.S. and Canada. A recent survey from the group highlights some good news for those considering expanding their family. The annual Best Adoption-Friendly Workplaces list found employers are increasing their investment in adoption benefits.
All families, whether it's a family formed through birth or a family formed through adoption, have those same needs of financial support, potentially, of time to bond with the child, time to make sure that that child is well cared for outside of the employee, maybe 8-hour workday.
The survey shows financial reimbursement for adoption is up nearly 10% from last year, while the average amount of paid leave is up 8%. Survivors helping each other. Straight ahead, school mass shooting survivors gather to share their healing journeys. And out-of-control crime creating repair headaches for small businesses. The common material in high demand following a rash of break-ins. This is the National Desk, America's News Now. Our team of nearly 4,000 local journalists bringing you the headlines from coast to coast. We're taking the pulse of America, starting with support for Uvalde school shooting survivors.
It's events like this that help her through her healing.
Uvalde mother Gladys Gonzalez says every day her daughter Caitlin is coping from the shooting.
She's a 4th grade survivor from Robb Elementary.
But her mom was eager to bring her to this event hosted by other survivors.
Just the fact that she's able to be a kid and, you know, do playing around, goofing around.
And it's supposed to be for them to be able to regain and take back that childlike innocence that they lost when this event happened.
18-year-old Zoe Torre climbed out of a classroom window to get away from a gunman at Oxford High School almost a year ago to the day.
I wanted these younger kids, once we heard about Uvalde, to be able to have someone to come to because I wish I had someone to go to.
Torre and 16 other high school students from Oxford High School created the Oxford Legacy, formed after the Uvalde tragedy.
It does bring us together in a way that no one else understands.
I hope to take away those long-lasting relationships and get to take away a pen pal almost.
It's been very, very busy.
Four Seasons Glass has repaired hundreds of broken glass doors and windows. With the rise in burglaries lately, they've been getting a number of calls every night from businesses who've had their windows or doors shattered.
A lot of break-ins is going right now, especially in Tacoma area and downtown Seattle.
An increase in crime and graffiti in Seattle has many businesses leaving the windows boarded up with wood. The cost of repair is what makes them hesitant about getting it fixed.
Started up with like about $1,500 for emergency board up, and it can go up to $2,000. It depends on the area.
Some well-known businesses like Pink Gorilla, a video game store who's been broken into several times, tells us that they paid for those repairs and added metal borders to protect the glass.
They need extra safety glass, which is more secure.
It's like they have no respect for this gorgeous scenery.
Someone, or likely some people, refurnished the foothills. Yep, they brought a couch up by Lime Kiln to Dry Creek Loop and then knocked it down.
Who brings furniture is the question. And how difficult is it to bring the furniture anyway?
Salt Lake City Public Land says this has happened 3 times in the last 2 weeks.
This was definitely unique for the foothills.
It's frustrating.
I get the nice views that we have up here, but you can just stand or bring a folding camping chair. You don't have to haul a sofa all the way up here.
One of the park rangers who tackled bringing this sectional down from Valley View.
The cushions were frozen to the couch frame, so pulling those off is actually one of the most difficult tasks that we had.
Removing this upside down couch, it's gonna be hard. But park rangers really just don't want this to be a permanent piece of foothill furniture.
We really just want to keep them as natural as possible and try to reduce our impact on these natural lands.
Our Washington Bureau covers the nation's capital every day to report on the important issues facing the country and how they impact you. For some perspective, I'm joined by national correspondent Christine Frizzau and chief political correspondent Scott Thuman. Christine, with the collapse of cryptocurrency exchange FTX, its founders' ties to key folks here in Washington are coming under scrutiny.
Yeah, you know, this is a story that we have been examining since its collapse a few weeks ago, and I have a feeling this is a story that's going to stay in the news for a long time. Sam Bankman-Fried, this 30-year-old guy with messy hair, has apparently gotten in with a lot of lawmakers in Washington. Well, the more we look into it, the more we realize why. This is somebody who gave millions. He was one of the top donors, as far as Democrats go, the second donor to Democrats and their causes this midterm election cycle. And that includes giving money to 7 Democrats and 2 Republicans on the House Financial Services Committee. This is a committee he already testified before and has now announced they will be investigating him. Now, it's really interesting when you get into sort of the bankruptcy filing. It shows just how unregulated, how much of a lack of oversight there was. And so there's questions now about, you know, how he was able to operate this company for so long and lose so many people's money without oversight, with concerns that perhaps giving so much money to people in Washington led them to turn the other way.
Yeah, we'll be watching that very closely over the coming months. And meanwhile, Scott, Congress heads into a lame duck session before Republicans take control of the House in January. How do you see things playing out in the coming weeks?
Well, I think that a lot of people are hoping, which we do every time there's a lame duck, Steve, is that there will be some progress made, that they don't find themselves at even greater stalemate, saying we should just hold off because there's going to be a change of power. And of course, that's going to be the case here in Washington, where you're going to have the House go into Republican hands and the Senate will remain in Democratic control. So what exactly can be done? Well, some things need to be accomplished. You can't just put off all work. For example, the biggest ones are going to be avoiding a government shutdown, making sure that the nation doesn't default on its debt, what it's been essentially borrowing from, because those could really put the economy, already fragile, into a tailspin. So those you can expect Congress will accomplish. But what about other big ticket items they want to handle? Well, they would love to get protections for election results. We've already seen a lot of legislation on the Hill about this, but not finalized, to make sure that the certification process goes smoothly and you don't have a possibility of another January 6th, or at least some sort of allusion to that. Also protecting same-sex marriage. That's something that we're seeing on the national level, calls for some sort of legislation to get put into place. And then possibly punishing overseas oil countries, the OPEC nations, for cutting back on production. That, of course, has made things difficult for Americans energy-wise across the country. There's some lawmakers saying, let's go ahead and put that into place. And then finally, there are other talks about, for example, cutting back on what exactly lawmakers can do when it comes to buying stocks, and what their families should be doing to avoid any conflict of interest. So a lot of to-do items, Steve. We don't know how many will be accomplished, but those top ones have to be.
A long list going into the end of the year, and then of course a new long list after the new Congress comes in at the beginning of the year next year, with a Republican House and a Democratic-led Senate. Chief political correspondent Scott Thuman, national correspondent Christine Frizzau, thank you both. Back to you.
Junior college comeback. Coming up next, what new enrollment numbers reveal about its role in higher education. Enrollment at community college may be starting to stabilize. The National Desk's Angelo Brown has details from a new report after numbers dropped during the pandemic.
A stunning headline from the LA Times just days ago. Community college enrollment at California community colleges drops to a 30-year low. Enrollment in free fall now showing signs of slowing nationally. This October report from the National Student Clearinghouse found that fall enrollment at community colleges flat, down just 0.4%, encouraging signs following the last 2 years. Community colleges losing more than 827,000 students since spring of 2020. The executive director from the National Student Clearinghouse Research Center said, although the decline has slowed and there are some bright spots, a path back to pre-pandemic enrollment levels is growing further out of reach. Professors urging students to give community colleges a second look.
The beauty is with community colleges that all options are open to you. So if you do want to transfer to the four-year school, you have that option. If you want to go into the workforce, you have that option.
This fall, enrollment at four-year universities declining by 1.6%, higher than community colleges. The price tag? Keeping students out of the classroom. The president saying this.
The total cost to attend a public four-year university has tripled, nearly tripled in 40 years.
A new study from the Gates Foundation revealing what many parents and students already know. 38% of students didn't enroll in college because of fears about the cost of college and amassing debt. In Washington, D.C., I'm Angela Brown.
And that does it for us. Thanks for watching the National Desk. I'm Dee Dee Gatton. Have a great weekend.